This is Mary Makes, and I wanted to try an experiment of a variation on a jelly roll race. A jelly roll race, or a 2.5 inch strip race, is a style of quilt that takes the pre-cut fabric and you bias connect each of the strips into an incredibly long strip. Then you join those two together into two strips, and then you take the other end of that and you join the twos into a four, etc., etc., until you have a quilt. So behind me is a jelly roll race that I made with a roll called Merry and Bright. It is a Christmas fabric that has pinks and greens and grays and blacks. And if you'll notice on the bias connections, on the places where you can see the contrast, I changed up the angle sometimes. Instead of always doing them the exact same way, I made some going left and some going right. And I liked the variety of that, but I was also a little bit curious, places where the fabric touched itself, the same piece of fabric connected to itself. It made me a little curious about ways to do a variation, because I had a spare roll of this fabric, and this fabric happened to come with exactly 2 per print. So I thought I might try something here. The first set I pulled of one of each of the prints, and I left it random as it came off the roll. So I've got a black, gray, green, pink, stripes, blacks, grays, greens, pinks, etc. across. It's a variety. So I'm going to sew this as a traditional jelly roll race with all of the angles going the same direction and just throwing it together randomly. Just curious, let's see if we can see a difference. The duplicate pieces, I took and I put them in a color wash colorway. So I started with the pinks. I put all the pinks together to a black with a lot of pinks and colors, and then we transitioned through the blacks to a darker, and then we go over to the grays, and after the grays we go to the greens. So this is a wash of colors. I think I might actually do this one with all the same angles, because pink on pink, you're not going to see the lines very much. You're not going to see any contrast there. So maybe I'll do this one with all the same angle, and we'll see how that turns out. And then this one that's miscellaneous, I think I'll mix up the angles, maybe even do a couple straight ones and see what that looks like in the end. But I thought this might be interesting to try out, a jelly roll experiment, and it's a half of a roll, so I don't even know exactly what size it's going to end up. The one behind me is kind of a, I would say, a decent couch quilt. Not really as small as like a lap chair type quilt, but I would say like a couch quilt. One that you could cover your legs, but not like your nose to your toes. So I will give this a try, and I will show you what they look like after I put them all together. Thanks. Hi, this is Mary Makes with the results of the jelly roll race experiment with a 42 strip roll that had duplicates. So I did one quilt with half of the strips and the other quilt with the other half. On this one, I did a random order, and I alternated the seams from left and right slants when I joined all of the different pieces together. This one looks a little more scrappy. It does have a variety. It has the slants this way, and then it has some going the other way, And I think the slants, differences with the slants show up better with the seams when the colors are mixed up and it's kind of contrasting. This is kind of the thought process behind the regular Jelly Roll Race, original Jelly Roll Race, is to have this mixture and a little bit of randomness and scrappiness. This other one, I did all of the seams in the same direction, so they're all exactly the same. And then I did the pieces in color order. So I started with, let's say, a black, and then the black, went to gray, and then went to gray and to green, etc. It didn't show up as much as I thought it would. I thought it would kind of wash along a little more, but it still looks pretty scrappy, slightly less scrappy than the other one. I think I might just join the two together because they're not really large enough for anything but like a baby quilt at this size. So I might just join them together and make them into a random couch quilt, or consider combining them with the other version that I have that was an entire quilt. I'm gonna grab that one. This might be tricky because I think it's taller than me. So this is pretty much a standard Jelly Roll Race, except for I was practicing and learning about putting the pieces together to make the long bias strip, and there's a few of them I messed up that seam and had to cut it. So some of these strips are not the full 42. They're a little shorter because I made some mistakes. So this one I did alter the angles sometimes, and I think that adds to the variety of the overall quilt. So I might add the two together or combine this into one and have two matching quilts. Don't know yet. I'll give it a try. But for an experiment to figure out what changes you could make to your jelly roll, the color order or putting them in an order, it's not a huge difference, but it is a little bit more noticeable. The seams were less noticeable when I did the colors matching because they just sort of gradated into each other, and it wasn't as much contrast as the changing of the colors, because a lot of these seams here, all these same colors are in the same tone, so you can't see them. But where there was a contrast, it showed up pretty bright. Anyway, that was a result of my experiment. I hope you enjoyed it.